My name is Jeff Orlowski, and I'm a film director based in Boulder, Colorado, here at COP21 to document some footage for our latest film.
Wow, usually when I ask climate scientists to do that, can you just give a short introduction and 10 minutes
10
later?
minutes later, you start the conversation.
Yeah.
We've had to deal with that same issue often. As how do you help scientists be concise with their communication? That is very much what I feel like our team is focusing on quite a bit.
Well, can you give me a tip then when you're interviewing a scientist? How do you coax a short answer out of them?
Cut them off, actually interrupt them and break their framework for being used to talking for a long period of time. And then you can ask another question and let them talk a little bit longer, and it sort of gives them that comfort zone again. Then you can get them used to more and more of those shorter answers. But I'll interrupt people. I'll interrupt Ove all the time. I'll interrupt scientists because they have immense expertise on a very, very specific subject area, and they will happily talk about it longer and longer if given the opportunity, as they should. But in terms of how somebody wants to use that in a film, or how you can use it in a particular piece, that's really a lot of what we've learned from that experience of trying to get the conversation focused on, okay, this is the one slice that we need to talk about. Let's talk about this. Yeah.
Could you explain how you got into the Chasing Ice film in the first place?
Yeah. I was in college. I was an undergraduate in college, and I was doing a lot of cinematography at the time. And I got introduced to James Baylog, who is the subject of Chasing Ice. And I got my foot in the door by shooting video for him. And it was really this opportunity to just be a videographer and to travel out in the field and to shoot with him. And we weren't planning on making a movie at the start. It was all about documenting. My role was to document what he was working on. And it took about a year and a half of being out in the field with him, where we kept collecting all this footage, and we amassed a huge archive of video footage. And at that point, I started pushing him harder and harder. We should make a movie, and he finally gave us the green light to do that.
How did you evolve it from just this technical process of capturing these glaciers to turning it into a personal narrative?
Yeah. Fortunately, because we had spent that much time out in the field, we had a lot of those real human moments already captured. So we saw that there was the potential of that in the raw footage. After we decided we were going to actually make a film, then we had to do a lot more work on, okay, what is the story? How do we want to tell the story? What do we need to reshoot? What do we need to go back and figure out? How do we tell the story of this thing that happened that we didn't film properly, and be able to capture that and to develop that story properly? And for me, film school was the process of making Chasing Ice. It was going through this ongoing, like making an edit of the film, showing it to people, learning what questions they had, what they didn't understand, and then figuring out how do we answer those questions and how do we address it in the film. So that process was a very long, ongoing editing process.
What was the response of the public to the film and all the images?
We've constantly been blown away by the response to Chasing Ice. I think we never really anticipated fully what the value and the meaning of the film would have. We had been living in that world and had been observing and seeing the glaciers changing for so long that for us it became a norm. And when we were showing it to people, we could see how much they were responding to the footage and to the imagery of both the time lapses of the glaciers and the calving of the glaciers. It was a really, really powerful collection of imagery that ended up becoming much bigger than just the film itself. It really got out there in a big way.
We're here at COP21 in Paris, the climate negotiations, and it's all about coming up with solutions to climate change. What role does communication and films like yours play in as part of the solution to climate change?
I think if people don't understand a problem, they don't care about it. And what our job as filmmakers and storytellers is to be able to communicate what's happening, whether it's to the planet or to other issues as well. I feel very privileged that our team has been able to go out to the front lines of where the planet is changing and see the front lines of climate change, and to be able to document that and to share that with the world with our footage. So that's what we're doing with our new project, and that's what hopefully the type of imagery and the type of content can influence policymakers and decision makers at events like this, because they've seen and they've been affected emotionally by the imagery that we've been collecting.
I'll come to that new project in a moment, but could you talk about your experience with public engagement once the film was made and you were showing it to audiences? What kind of response did you get? Did you get any negative responses or objections to I guess, the science of climate change or the message in your film?
I was constantly blown away when we would do screenings at film festivals. People would sit throughout the entire end credits, and they would just sit for the whole time and watch the film to the very, very last frame. And I think it was both a testament to the beauty of the footage, but also to the kind of the power of the footage, of what it was showcasing and what it was showing people. I think that all goes hand in hand with the public. We kept seeing time and time again that the public really resonated with the footage, that it was, whether it was so revealing to them or so different from the world that they had been aware of, that we were able to capture that world of the Arctic and bring it into people's homes and into movie theaters. So people got to see what we experienced firsthand, and that was really the most meaningful and the most powerful thing from my perspective. We shared the film with many skeptics, people who were skeptical of climate change, and there's the Six Americas language. There's research on the different categories of, at least within the United States where I'm from, what people think about this issue of climate change. And every single group has a different, they're coming into the film with a different expectation, a different assumption. We learned very quickly that you can't really talk to the different groups in the same way. Every specific group sort of needs its own messaging based on what they're ready for and what they've been exposed to. And there were plenty of deniers who came and saw the film in the doubtful, dismissive, disengaged category, who came and saw the film that were transformed from that experience. And that was always the most meaningful for us, because in many ways that was the target audience. The choir will come and see the film. The types of people that are here at COP21 will see Chasing Ice or our next film. Like, that is the more natural audience. The big question is, how do you get that content to people who need to see it the most?
When people did throw arguments at you against the climate science, was there any particular resource, say a website or an app that you drew upon?
Yeah, well, we definitely leverage skeptical science quite a bit. We would point people to the website and to the app, and I used it personally oftentimes. If somebody would ask a question that I didn't know the answer to, I would usually, like right after the Q&A, I'd pull up skeptical science, I'd learn what the answer, what the best response was based on the real scientific data. And then the next time the question came up, it's like, yes, this is what the peer-reviewed literature has to say. I think that's one of the biggest problems with this issue, is that the average person they're not reading the peer-reviewed science. Whether they're seeing whatever news channel that they're being exposed to, or wherever they're getting their information from, there is a lot of misinformation on the subject of climate change out in the public, and a lot of it that's been intentionally fed to the public to cause confusion. So for us, skeptical science was a huge resource to be able to go back and see, all right, this is what the scientific literature has to say, and if you had a counter to this, please show it to us. Please bring us your sources that differ from what the scientific literature says, because then we can actually have a real valid conversation. People would never bring valid arguments in response to what we saw from skeptical science. So it was really sort of a bomb-proof explanation to why the science is the way it is.
Great. And so what was next after Chasing Ice? What are you working on now?
Right now we're working on a project that's about coral reefs and how the oceans are changing and how coral reefs are bleaching. And this phenomenon of coral bleaching is directly a result of climate change and temperature rise and ocean temperature rise. So what we're trying to do is capture and visualize that phenomenon so that people can see it and understand it in a similar way that they understood glaciers changing.
How long away till people will be able to see this?
No idea how long, but hopefully soon, within a year or two. Yeah, we've been working on it for quite a while, and I'm looking forward to ending all the shooting so that we can finish the movie and get it out there.
Thank you very much, Jeff.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you, John.